The battle of the tempo run is over. The battle for the best super shoe is about to begin. Adidas Adios Adios Pro and the Asics MetaSpeed Sky are arguably two of the best super shoes that are on the market today, bringing you a head-to-head comparison between these two super shoes so that you guys can make a decision for yourself which shoe is the perfect racing shoe for you. I just want to start off by saying that I tried to make this as fair of a test as I possibly could. I will attach the statistics here and the metrics, but basically I did a tempo run in this last week and a tempo run in this today. I have done 70 or 80 miles in this shoe now between the orange version and the pink one, and about 22 miles now in the Asics MetaSpeed Sky. I did the exact same route, I put in relatively the exact same effort, and we're going to compare some of the data from that, battle them head to head, so we're going to have a winner for each category. We will be looking at responsiveness, stability, lockdown, value, weight, and the fit and feel of these two gorgeous looking racing shoes. We interrupt this broadcast for a special announcement. If you are new to the channel today, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that thumbs up like, leave me a comment below, but most importantly, if you could hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for notifications. I hope you'll see that I'm a massive shoe enthusiast and you're going to want to be coming here in the future for all your super shoes and daily trainer and workout needs. Going back to the tempo run, basically, both of these I did a 6.2 or 10k in. As I said, it was the exact same route. It was sort of a mile warm-up, 4 mile tempo, and then a mile cool down. So some of the metrics that we've got here, I'm going to start off with the Asics MetaSpeed Sky. Let me just put a bit of context into this so you guys are aware. I am 6'2" and 92 kilograms. So this is how these shoes perform for a slightly heavier guy that's not at elite level but a fairly decent runner-ish for my size, I hope. So yeah, we'll start off with the Asics MetaSpeed Sky. I just will say that pretty much the splits for both of the runs were almost identical. The metrics were almost identical, but we'll just talk through them. Average pace of 6 minutes 40. The Adidas Adios Pro, average pace of 6 minutes 39, so barely anything in that at all. In terms of looking at the heart rate differences, again, this is not a definitive answer, just so we've got some metrics to compare. In the Asics MetaSpeed, my heart rate was 159 beats per minute on average over the whole run, and in the Adios Pro, 162 over the whole run. So again, very little in it there. It's a sort of interesting bit. The Asics MetaSpeed Sky is sold as being sort of more of a stride running type shoe for those of us that have got bigger strides, maybe bigger guys like me, that aren't necessarily amazing to get our cadence up, but could just struggle because of our weight and because of our height. But I also sort of feel that in this shoe because of the firmer foam. But I was interested to see what the difference in the actual cadence and the stride length would be between these two shoes. And I think the data that I've got is definitely inconclusive, or I'll have to do some further tests for that. But in the MetaSpeed Sky, I did see a slight increase in the stride length. The stride length in the MetaSpeed Sky was 1.43 meters, which is obviously just your distance between one stride and when your next foot lands. That's Adios Pro, it was 1.2 meters. So I definitely don't, I'm not going to say that that's enough information there to say like, yeah, this is for a stride runner. They're too close in it, and I do think, for me, I feel like both of these work good for a stride runner, or alternatively a cadence. I don't know, that's not how I run. I've tried it and it just doesn't really work. So I'm seeing a slight tiny decrease in cadence in the MetaSpeed Sky than I am in the Adios Pro, but again, it's definitely inconclusive. But yeah, I was just interested to see, you know, how did that translate. The overall tempo pace, not including the warm-up and cool-down, again was pretty much identical in both of these shoes. It was 6:09 in the Asics MetaSpeed Sky and 6:10 in the Adidas Adios Pro. Again, barely anything in it. So I think you will agree that that gives us an incredibly fair test there to sort of compare how I feel things like the lockdown, stability, responsiveness, and just general fit and feel of these shoes is after those two runs. We are going to quickly talk about a few of the details. So the Asics MetaSpeed Sky has a heel to toe drop of 5mm with a stack height of 33mm in the heel and 28mm in the forefoot, and it weighs in at 245 grams in my men's size UK 11.5, and I do think that this is true to size. It does fit true to size for me. Alternatively, looking at the Adidas Adios Pro, this is a heavier of the two shoes by about 30 grams. This shoe weighs in at 274 grams, and it has an 8mm drop instead of a 5mm drop, so a little bit more aggressive there on the drop. With a stack height, got 40mm in the heel and 32mm in the forefoot. I mean, there's a little bit of difference there between the weight, which will bring us on to the first showdown between these two super shoes, the weight. So obviously, based by those metrics there, that data I've just given you, the winner for weight is the Asics MetaSpeed Sky. They do both feel quite light on your foot, but I do think that this does feel a little bit lighter for me. Personally, I don't find weight a massive issue. Maybe it's because of my weight myself. It really doesn't make much of a difference to me. I mean, obviously I wouldn't want to race in a super heavy shoe like a brick or something like that, because I probably would notice it then. But, you know, between these two, I just really don't notice a massive difference. But I know a lot of people are interested in the weight. Moving on to perhaps the most interesting and fun part of a shoe, the responsiveness. How that plate, how that midsole, how it all comes together for that out and out speed on race day when you just want to feel power. Which one of these do I think gives you the most responsiveness? Now, I'm going to have to say that the winner for responsiveness is the Adidas Adios Pro. But I can tell you that it is incredibly close, actually so close. The reason why I think this is the winner is because I think it just gives you a bit more responsiveness for less power, less effort, but I don't think you have to put quite as much power and effort into your strides to get as much responsiveness back from the foam and the plate. I just feel like maybe the plate and the metatarsal rods and the foam, for me personally, just work a little bit better. That being said, I do think that this comes into its own the more power you put behind the stride. Certainly when I was running at sort of 550 pace on my tempo run, this shoe felt absolutely amazing. That's when it really came alive and I could just feel the power behind it, the plate and the foam. Necessarily get that real sort of, I know it is quite stiff, but I don't necessarily feel that like sort of carbon plate stiffness that I get from the Next Percent or the Alpha Flies, or even from the Adios Pro. So maybe that's why this doesn't feel quite as fast. I think you'll find both of them very fast. Moving on to, perhaps recently because of my injury, one of my most important factors in a racing shoe is stability. I don't mean stability in terms of medial posts and guide rails and all that sort of thing. I just mean inherent stability from the lockdown and how the foam feels and that sort of thing. I'm going to start off by saying that both of these shoes are very, very stable shoes and much more stable than the likes of the Next Percent 2 and the Alpha Fly, in my opinion. But there is a winner here in stability, even though it's very, very close. And the most stable shoe for me is the Asics MetaSpeed Sky. That is the winner. I just find this shoe incredibly surprisingly stable. No issues whatsoever for me in feeling like my ankle is going to go at any point. The foam just feels a little bit firmer and it's just a little bit wider, I think, and it just gives that overall better stability for me. As I say, the Adidas Adios Pro is a stable shoe, especially compared to the Alpha Fly and the Next Percent. Moving on to the lockdown. This is quite important, isn't it, in a racing shoe? Especially if you're running fast, you want that shoe to feel part of your foot, you know? You and your shoe become one. You don't want it slipping and sliding and moving about. Once it's on your foot, you just want to forget about it. You don't want to worry about feeling like your toes are slipping or your heels moving around or any of that sort of thing. For me, it's really, really close. Again, both of these shoes have a really good lockdown. You can adjust the laces quite a lot on the Adios Pro. You can't so much on the MetaSpeed Sky, although I really don't feel like you need to. Both of them have quite relatively low padding tongues, although there is a bit more padding in the Adios Pro, which I don't think necessarily affects the lockdown, maybe the overall comfort. The heel areas are very different from each other. I think there's definitely a little bit more structure in the Asics. As you can see here, it doesn't compress as much when I press on it, whereas on the Adios Pro, I can sort of flatten that right down. The winner for lockdown is the Asics MetaSpeed Sky. For me, I just get a really good lockdown from this without having to pull it too tight. I just think it all comes together really nicely. You got no heel slippage at all. Whereas, you know, it is a great lockdown in the Adios Pro, but I just find it just not quite as good as the MetaSpeed Sky. Moving on to value. Now, this is going to be quite a clear winner for me. And it's going to be the Adidas Adios Pro. I still think it's the best priced carbon racing shoe out there. The Asics MetaSpeed Sky is actually quite expensive at £225 versus £170 for the Adios Pro, although this is pretty much impossible to get a hold of. But, you know, I know this has got recyclable material made in upper, which is brilliant. Maybe that does increase the production costs, I don't know. But, you know, £170 versus £225, it's a big difference, especially in terms of performance, where they're very much on par with each other. Moving on to our final category there is just the overall fit and feel of the shoe, the sort of the comfort level that you get from both of the shoes. So again, it is so close. Both of these shoes they are really comfortable to run in. I'm not just saying that. I do enjoy running in both of these shoes. When I put them on, both of them have got me smiling. Both of them have got me thinking this feels awesome. I feel like a superhero running in these shoes, bouncing around. But in terms of comfort, I just think the overall winner, again, is the Adidas Adios Pro. And that's just because I think, even though I know, again, this is made from recyclable materials and it is more stable and all that sort of thing, and maybe has a little bit of a better lockdown, it just feels not too coarse, I don't want to put you off, but it just feels a little bit coarser on my foot. The upper feels a little bit coarser. The heel area certainly feels a little bit coarser than it does in the Adios Pro, which feels a little bit smoother, feels a little bit more plush and a little bit more comfy in the Adios Pro. I haven't seen signs of blisters in any of these shoes, although I do feel a little bit of sort of rubbing on my ankle and the Achilles area in the Asics MetaSpeed Sky, just I think because of the maybe coarser nature of the material at the back here. So that is it in terms of the scoring. We're level playing. We've got 3 for the Adidas Adios Pro and 3 for the Asics MetaSpeed Sky. It's a draw, but we're not going to have it as a draw. We are going to decide a winner here just based on my personal preference. If someone said to me, Sam, you've got a 10k race tomorrow, which one are you going to pick? I would pick the Adidas Adios Pro, and it would be a very close one. But just for me, it just feels a little bit more responsive with the same, with still very good levels of comfort and very good levels of stability and all that sort of thing. Although this is a little bit more stable and a little bit better of a lockdown, this is still great. And I just think this is still my weapon of choice for at least over 10k races. So guys, the battle for the super shoes is over. The Asics MetaSpeed Sky versus the Adidas Adios Pro has had one winner, and that is the Adidas Adios Pro. As you can see from the scoring, it has been incredibly close. Just because I've scored one as a winner, it doesn't necessarily mean it will be the same for you. You might think, well, actually, I really think stability is a huge thing, and although I think stability is very equal between the two, this is the more stable shoe. And it is so close, you might think that weight is a factor for you, in which case this will edge it for you. Or value, you know, it'll go with this. Hopefully these scoring metrics here sort of helped you decide the fact that it's not always about speed, so maybe if there's a certain thing you're looking for, you'll go for one over the other. I can definitely say that I enjoy running in both of these shoes. Both of them just feel amazing to run in, but it is just still a slight win for me for the Adidas Adios Adios Pro. Once again, guys, I really do hope you've enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed this sort of head-to-head fight between these two shoes. It really could have gone either way, and it was so close. Please, if you haven't already, I really would appreciate it if you could subscribe. Let me know in the comments below as well. Be interested to hear, if you've got both of these shoes, which one do you prefer? And if you've only got one or the other, do you agree with some of the things that I've said today about them? But for now, guys, as always, I've been Running Man Sam. These have been some super duper running shoes, and I will see you guys in a bit.